The tickets to this talk this morning sold out under 2 minutes. And regardless of the horrible weather this morning, you're all here. So obviously, we're touching on a subject that's super interesting for a lot of you. We're going to be talking about challenging norms, something that we see going on in globally, but in particular here in the Swedish fashion industry. To moderate the panel, we have Maja Gunn, PhD in fashion design. And in the panel, we have a variety of designers, style makers, and representatives of the Swedish fashion industry. CEO Åsa Sonnemyr of Hope, stylist extraordinaire Naomi Itkes, one half of Lazo Schmiedel, Josef Lazo, and Pablo Londono from This is Sweden. So welcome again, and I'll pass it over to you, Maja.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you everyone for coming. I just gonna say, just present myself a little bit more. I hold a PhD in fashion design, where my research is about gender and queer and how you can work with clothes to challenge heteronormativity in different ways. And I'm also a curator for an exhibition at Arktes that's named Normform, that opens on October 6th. And in that exhibition we show, I'm a curator together with two other people, Camilla Andersson and Karin Arnberger, and we show design that challenge norms in different ways. It's fashion, it's architecture, it's graphic design, and so forth. And I just want to start with, Emma, you did a nice introduction to everyone, but I want everyone in the panel to present themselves a little bit more, and if you could say something about how you become interested in this topic, just briefly. Thank
you. My name is Åsa Sonnemyr, and I'm CEO of Hope, and I'm interested of this subject. I'm actually a lot in the norm, I would say. But I would say it's two things that not really the norm. I'm a woman and sitting in a panel, so that's not the norm. And I think I'm actually older than most of you here, so that's not in the norm here either. But I'm actually grown up in the 60s, and when I was young, everyone was like fighting for things. And then came the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and we did business. So I have always had these two parts inside of me, and I'm thinking that now is the time to actually challenge things again. So maybe summing up the 60s here.
My name is Naomi Itkes. I've been working as a stylist, a curator, an editor the last 15 years, mostly here locally, but also internationally. I would say that the definition of norm can be very dynamic, so let's not discuss it yet, but I think that all of us that are here represents parts of it and anti-parts of it.
Hi everyone, my name is Josef Lazo, and I'm one of the half behind the label Lazo Schmiedel, which I do together with Andreas. I'm a designer, and for us I think to create, you have to break the norms, because if you don't, you're not really creating anything new. So being a creator is also norm breaking.
Hi, I'm Pablo, co-founder of This is Sweden, together with my sister Anna. We didn't intend to challenge the norm when we started out. It was just something that came along by doing what we thought was right within our topic of discussing nationalism, anti-racism, and questions that talk about what's Swedish and Swedishness.
Thank you. So you all in this panel work with this topic in one way or another, and I want to start with you, as I can the slide. But you worked a lot with, or you released a new size system. Can you say something? Can you say something?
About it? Yes, absolutely. I can say a lot about it.
And
It's
the process behind it.
yeah. It's actually been a long journey coming to this. It started a few years ago when the founders, Anna and Stefan of Hope, decided to leave the company, working every day in the company, and I also recruited Frida Bard as a new design manager for the company, and we had to like go to the ground of Hope to rediscover Hope, and we went back in time and thought about why actually Anna and Stefan started Hope, and they started Hope because they wanted to challenge. They delivered fashion for women with a very masculine tone in it. And today we think that's really ordinary. And that is the way things are there is bounds that you have to get through. And when you do, we think it's all ordinary. So we were thinking about what is not ordinary today. Giving men's clothes to women is ordinary. But for men to wear clothes that is not really so masculine is still, it's not really so common. And we were thinking about that a lot, and we did a collection called Changes, and we can talk a little bit about that later. But when we did that collection, we thought about how to market. We talked about small, medium, large to make it really simple, but we wanted to do it in a different way. So we decided to do a different size labeling system that we think no one else has done. So we double mark it. So on this picture you can see this is actually a garment from our women's collection. So then we put the women's size first and the men's size last. And the reason that we do it is because we want to highlight individuality. We want everyone to have the opportunity to choose from whatever you want, and we think that's beautiful. And I actually have I've been in the football industry before, and I met one of the goalkeepers in Hammarby, and he had this really nice Hope trousers on him, and I was really happy. So I said, wow, that's a pair of Hope trousers. So nice. And he said to me, yeah, I know, but it's actually women's trousers. And we don't want anyone to feel that they have chosen something that's not really them. He was really proud about the trousers, and he don't have to say if it's a women's trouser or a men's trouser. And we think that's really liberating.
How has the reactions been when of this, and what's the greatest challenge been during the process? And you still, I mean, this is another image where you see men, women, like you still do this, you still separate them in like which one comes first?
Yeah, we do, and we actually have one men's collection and one women's collection, and I think creativity it's a process, and I think change is also our process. You won't change everything in one night, so we want to have our customers with us in this. If you do it all at once, we don't think that we can get them with us. We want to inspire them to like take the first step, and of course maybe tomorrow we will change our stores also. Maybe we'll put everything in colors or in like jackets. I don't know. Maybe. We want to challenge that also.
Naomi, you worked as a stylist with different brands and also like with Hope. Can you say something about that collaboration, how you work with the different brands from a norm challenging perspective?
That's a good question. I've been working with a variety of the Swedish designer for many years. I think I started off with Sandra Backlund back in the days, and then went working very close to Anne-Sophie Back, and now working very close to Frida at Hope. I would say what they all have in common is norm is, to me, still very something undefined in a way, but if you say that creativity comes through trying to figure out what minority or majority thinks, I would say that these three designers have in common looking at the perspective of the minority in a way, or what's the opposite norm of the society. And Frida is, as a designer, she's so well elaborated and interesting, and that's very rare, I think. And all of those questions that we are discussing at Hope are partly something that the society is in the time that we live in. But also as a designer, you have to challenge so many other thoughts in the process of creating. And I think Frida at Hope does it very strongly. As Anne-Sophie Back also been doing it forever. So if that's answering your question.
And you also worked with editorial materials a lot in Purple magazine, and I picked some photos. Can you say something about the image? The photo.
It's so hard to analyze the image like this, but I don't know if everyone knows the magazine Purple. It's been around for at least 25 years. It's the anniversary this year. And I think Purple as a magazine comes with something quite rare, because it's quite theoretical and it's quite intellectual, which makes parts of the fashion image more complex and interesting, I think, because they're not selling trends at any part. So it's a description of something more artistically, whatever that is. But this is the model Alec Weck in very... I don't know what to say. This is Alec Weck. That's everything we can say. She's a great model of one of the first one in her time. She was 14 years old when she was discovered, and she's from Sudan. At that time, there was not that many girls from Sudan walking the catwalks, and she was among the biggest ones, and is still today among the few ones with the the position that she has in the society. She works for the UN, so I think she's much more than anything a person that is super interesting to photograph.
You can take the next image. I have two images here for you.
Oh,
this one also.
And that's a very weird story. Yeah, this is another story from Purple, with a Danish photographer called Kasper Serjesen. He's been working with Lars von Trier. I don't know what that says, but I would say that makes some of the atmosphere in these images quite maybe not what you expect from fashion in some terms. I don't know. You have to ask me for questions.
How do you work then with the photographer? If you have an aim to challenge norms, is it hard to get those ideas through to photographers?
I think everything is within. When you work, I think even if you need to be quite aware of the process when you work in every field, I mean, from designing to styling, it's still something that comes, that is bigger than yourself sometimes. You don't really have the words for it. So I would say that it's so much about chemistry in our industry, and it's based on that. So I think when you challenge a norm, it just, whatever that means, it just it happens because you believe in the same, or you have the same values of life. And this is what you see in the pictures.
Thanks. With Josef, I want to ask, like, because fashion is so connected to desire and pleasure, and you worked a lot with that. Or when I see the images of your brand, Lazo, I see a lot of desire or sex or I can read that or interpret that in the images. Can you say something about that, how you relate to that and the story behind your label or your collections?
When we start a collection, first of all, me and Andreas, we come from two different worlds. Andreas has he has a MA in Japanese and German literature, and I have a sort of classic fashion BA from London College of Fashion. So we have come from two completely different worlds, and to combine these two skills, we start a collection by Andreas is writing. He writes a story, so it's a manuscript almost, and from that manuscript I interpret and I design, and then we start the dialogue, and the stories like this is, yeah, I mean, it's very desirable, it's very sexy. It's a bit difficult to talk about this collection because we have a show tomorrow with the new collections. It's like this is a bit behind us, but
you mentioned something about the sexual revolution.
Yeah, I mean, we notice it a lot when we work with these gorgeous models, as we have the pleasure to do. Not doing them, do. There were too many do's there. For this shoot, for example, we did this. This shoot is photographed at the Swedish Institute in Paris. I was actually living there in January, and we had the opportunity to use their facilities for our photo shoot. We actually asked the boys to pick their own outfits, and the first thing this Jonathan to the right was like, "Do you have a dress? Do you have a dress?" It's like, "No, we don't have a dress, but you can wear a Britney-inspired top in metal mesh." It's like, yeah. So you can notice with the younger generation that they are very free, and they don't really question. They actually enjoy dressing up and playing with norms, and I think it's becoming more of a natural thing, and that's why I mentioned before about the sexual revolution. We're going back to kind of like the before wartime in Berlin, the 60s. We're in that stage again where we all, I mean, at least the younger generation are willing to experiment and play, and it's just having fun, really.
Thanks. Pablo, gender and sexuality is something that you see in fashion, I think, frequently, and that's also perhaps an easy topic because of that to work with, because gender has it's crucial in fashion, and even if there are periods in the fashion history where the clothing between men and women have been more equal or looked similar, it's still the gender is still there. But with you, and this is Sweden, you worked with another agenda, or you had another topic sort of that you worked with a anti-racism topic. Can you say something? Now we show the bomber jacket here in the back, but can you say something about that work, how it started, and how you transform symbols to become your symbols?
Yeah, the topic is a lot about identity, what it is to be Swedish, or what does it take to become Swedish. For example, if you doesn't look what people presume as Swedish, they always ask, where are you from? And you're like, yeah, well, I'm Swedish. No, but you know what I mean. Where are your parents from? Yeah, but you know, I have a Swedish passport. All my life, people been asking like, yeah, but your name doesn't sound Swedish, or you don't look Swedish. And when I moved abroad and I said I was either Colombian or Swedish, there were also very mixed reactions. And it took me a while, but also for my sister, to realize that you don't have to choose one culture. We have two cultures. We have the Colombian culture in our case, and the Swedish culture. So we actually don't have to choose for one of these cultures. And so there's a pressure that you need to select one thing, like, are you Swedish or are you Colombian? Or are you half or whatever, 1/4, or it doesn't really matter. So what we did with, in this case, the bomber jackets, is that we just took a symbol from when we came as refugees to Sweden in 1991. And it was like the first wave of refugees from the Balkan War, the Gulf War, Rwanda. So in the refugee camp which we were staying in, you could see all the different conflicts in the world. Like, we stayed in a refugee camp for 2 years, and we were playing around with kids from all around the world. And we remember being kids and seeing in the news that there were like adults on the street protesting that we should not be here, we should go back home because we are, what did you say in Swedish, svartskallar. And we didn't get it, like, we're just kids, we haven't done anything wrong. And the men who were protesting on the streets, waving the Swedish flags, wearing these jackets, super aggressive look, were the skinheads. And I don't know, I guess a lot of you remember these times when, like, in the early 90s, where there was like a downslope in the economy, and there were like a lot of refugees coming, and then there's a party in the Swedish government called Ny Demokrati, which has kind of a racist agenda. And Anna and I were just like talking about what it is to be Swedish, but also what it is to reclaim this Swedishness. How can you reclaim the Swedish flag? Was it ever taken away from anyone? Because if you have a Swedish flag on your clothes outside a sport event, it immediately is connotated with that you're a nationalist. Because Sweden doesn't have this type of tradition where you just proudly wave your flag like you have in, for example, United States or neighbor Norway, which is super normal just to have a flag. Whether your neighbor has a Swedish flag, you do think twice about, is this person nationalist? Is he voting for, you know, Sverigedemokraterna? And so what we did with the bomber jacket is just like, let's reclaim the flag and let's put it on the symbol of skinheads, because skinheads actually come from Jamaica. You know, skins, they listen to ska, they listen to reggae, and it's another thing that's been taken away from people of color. So what we do with this jacket is just reclaiming the flag, but also it's an experience to wear this jacket, depending of whether you're white or you're a person of color. Because if you're a person of color wearing a bomber jacket with a Swedish flag on it, it's a mind fuck for someone who sees it. It's like, wow, is this Jackie Arklöv, or, you know, like, it's a total ride. Even myself, when I wear this jacket, because I am presumed as white, not as outside European, I'm so conscious about, it's almost like it's burning on your sleeve. And people who bought the jacket from us, but also people who want to buy the jackets, like, they send emails saying, hi, I'm a blonde Swedish guy, can I wear this jacket? And then we often reply, yes, of course, wear the jacket and feel what it is to be someone else. Friends of us, but also people told us that no matter how much they smile and just try to be super friendly on the subway, people are really looking at them. It's like, what? It's like this blonde Nazi. It's like, no, it's anti-racist. But what this jacket does for someone white is that you, for once, get to experience being a person in the position where you are taking all the hits. People are maybe crossing the street to avoid you. But what you can do is that you can go home, change jacket, and just go back into the stream. If you are a brown person, you can't do that. This is how you live every day. So wearing this jacket is a bit like, you know, solidarity, having the experience of what it is to be someone that it's not considered white in today's society. So this is one of the things we've done with this jacket.
And how has the reactions been?
The reactions are great, partly because, you know, the bomber jacket has been in fashion, so it's also fun to take on such an item that's super mega trendy, but also exactly that, like, can I wear it? It's so scary, it burns on my arm. It's like, but also other people feel super empowered, like, hey, thank you so much, this is Sweden, really made me feel Swedish. My parents are from Thailand, but I am actually born in Sweden. And since I heard of you guys and I heard about the This is Sweden patches and the flags and everything, I really feel Swedish. So it's empowering third culture kids to feel part of this nation, which is not only an issue in Sweden, but like worldwide, in Europe also. Like, how do you feel at home somewhere where everything is telling you that you don't really belong here? Even though people don't mean it to be rude when they ask, where are you from? But it does hurt, or it does feel like old chewing gum after a while, like, all right, yeah. So the reaction has been great. Of course, it's very challenging. It's not commercial product. I wouldn't say conceptual, but it's just, we just do what felt right. Like, let's take this flag. Like, everyone should have it. It's not just for sports events or midsummer, or it should really be for everyone.
Thanks. This transformation of symbols also makes me think of changes that you work with, also the collection, and there you. Oh, maybe it gets. We can talk about it anyway. There, with that collection, you also used models that were not, or weren't models or weren't professional models. You use people to wear the clothes. But in relation to representation, and when you look at the images now, what's your thought on this campaign afterwards? Like, because this was last season, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about this image, actually.
And what happened during this process? Because I'm also thinking that when you work with this topic, you see new things all the time, and things change. And the more you work and the more you read, or the more you get involved in this topic, perhaps you also get more aware of your own privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a collection that had no gender. We wanted to talk about strong individuals, and we wanted to show the collection on people that actually were really interested in this kind of questions. But afterwards, I would say that we didn't really challenge so many norms in this picture, and I think we have a lot of things to do in the future, because the norms are not really about only gender. It's where you're from, or how you look, or sizes, and so on. And I think in this matter, the fashion business are really old-fashioned. So we really have to change this, and we really have to challenge it, I think. I mean, we have sample collections that we have in Hope in 36 and 48. That makes it very different to have very a variety in shapes of body. But actually we can challenge that, because we can also make photo shoots when we actually have the garments in store, and then we can use all the sizes. And I think we have to use our creativity to really change this, because one of the things that really changed my point of view was sommarprat with Sena Bosei that really made me cry, because she said that she's never felt like someone who we talk to. She has never seen someone that looks like her, and she can't really fit in the clothes that we make. So this is things that really gets us going, and we have to be their challenges. And do we enough? No, not yet, I would say. We have to take small steps, because we are also a business, and I have to think about that, because it's a lot of people that have their income from our company, of course. So like pushing the boundaries a little bit at the time, every day, that's really interesting. And actually this made us also think about who's working at Hope. So we've been really trying to push it there also, and recruit people that not really look as ourselves. And that's been challenging in many ways. Sometimes you think, can't everyone think like I do? So it's much easier. But no one thinks like I do in our company right now. And I think that's really liberating, and also very nice for the creative process.
When we talk about challenging norms and what the garments do, or like how we challenge norms, and almost labeling brands that that's a brand that's challenged norms, or what I'm doing now is challenging norms. Who decides that? Is it the designer, or is it the market, or is it the customer? Or Josef, do you want to answer that?
I think for us, it's been the industry around us that has named or given us the mark of norm breaking. I don't think we don't sit and say, now let's break some norms and challenge everyone. It just comes natural to us to do what we do, because if we didn't do this, then what's the point for us if we can't create what we feel? So I think it's definitely the industry, and especially in Stockholm and Sweden, I think it's a hot topic. So if you put a boy in red patent trousers and a little negligee top, it's their minds are going cuckoo and they want to talk about it. So because it is not a black sweater for $6.99. So yeah, I guess that's norm breaking then.
But how is it to get that labeling on you? Like, oh, that's a norm. They work with norm criticality, or like, is that something that feels limiting you or empowering you, or you don't care about it, or how is it to feel that others look at you as you're challenging norms?
I mean, honestly, no, we don't care about it, but it's definitely a positive labeling, because you're doing something that is definitely irritating people, but also pleasing people. So I think you get the message across. But no, there's nothing that, drives us to do the next collection, to be norm breaking.
I was thinking of that Åsa said that, or that you said that you have to think of how far you can go as a commercial company. You can't push the boundaries too much, because the customer gets shocked, or like it has to go step by step.
Maybe not at once.
Yeah, yeah. And I was thinking of the work with This Is Sweden, how you relate to the market, and how you almost work with the underground, or like grassroots, sorry, movement, where you can make things, or you encourage the customer to make their own This Is Sweden garment. Can you say something about that work and how that relates to changing norms related to the market?
Yeah, the great thing about This Is Sweden is that we are 100% independent. We owe no one favors and no one owes us favors. We have no investors. There's no one who's gonna come giving us an angry phone call. Hey guys, what the fuck you doing now? Customers are fleeing. I don't really think that you can be too political if that's your whole point, or never be way out of line, because partly people always want to see new things, right? And then if you have a board who doesn't agree on that, that's another story. But the great thing about us is that we are 100% independent and we don't depend on anyone except ourselves. If people like what we do, that's great. And we don't produce clothes. We don't have like a production line. We don't have stockists. We don't do these things already there. We're not running our company as a conventional fashion company. So when we did the bomber jackets, it was dead stock products, because we are based on human rights, and obviously when there's a production, human rights are gonna be violated somewhere, especially if it's a sweater for $6.99. So we were really thinking like, how do we do it? Well, there's a lot of dead stock, as in the vegetable industry. If the carrot is not straight enough or long enough, it gets thrown in the bin. If the color of your sweater didn't match the Pantone color of the customer, it gets thrown in a landfill. Or if the thread was wrong, it gets thrown. This is how it works in the fashion industry, because the sleeve may be too short, you know, all these kind of things. So this is what we buy up and reappropriate. But of course, not everyone can afford a jacket for 1,000 crowns, 1,500 crowns. So what we decided to do then is like, hey, you guys already maybe have your own bomber jacket from someone else. We make DIY kits where we actually give the customer our brand, the patches, everything they require that makes a This Is Sweden bomber jacket, to put it on your own bomber jacket. So what this means is that so many times big companies come to the underground and steal ideas, right? Everyone knows about subculture appropriation in the fashion world. So what we decided to do with the DIY kits is we hijack these brands. If you're a fan of This Is Sweden, you already got, for example, an Alpha jacket, bomber jacket. Let's hijack that brand with the This Is Sweden patches. So we just take it back, do a reverse. So we give the consumer the power to do their own clothes. So instead of spending, they use reappropriate. If you're tired of your t-shirt, don't buy a new one or throw it away. It's perfectly fine. Dye it, remake it, put on some patches. You can always wake up in the morning and decide to become a billboard for a multinational brand, right? You can use your body as a billboard. Your body is a political space. Or you can wake up in the morning and decide to show the world what you stand for. If you stand for sisterhood, if you stand for equality, if you stand for freedom, if you stand for anti-racism, or whatever, if you stand for wearing a Metallica t-shirt, you know, like all these band t-shirts are also great, you know? You communicate with people with what you wear. So why do you communicate corporate logos? Why don't you just communicate something that shows who you are? And with the DIY kits, this is what we did. We didn't really think about breaking the norm, but more like, how can we activate people to make their own stuff instead of spending? And how can you not spend? Like, there's already so much clothes in the world. We don't need to produce more clothes. We just put the tools out there. If you want a This Is Sweden patch, take one patch, put on your jacket.
If you feel comfortable to be political. You say like you can't be too political. It's like I want to ask the rest of you here in the panel, like, is there a line, if you work more commercial, like, is there a line, like, how political you can get, or like, is there, or can you claim that you're not political, like, when you do what you do, is that a political act or is it not? I would like to have your thoughts on that.
Okay. I think it's a very complex thing to answer, but we need to make a distinction between things in fashion too. There's something very severe that you're talking about that can come out of a mind that is quite independent, but you have to have that mindset, and you can't be. There's whenever you enter the business side of it, and you're stringed by the commercial challenge that comes with a bigger business, it's really what you're saying. It's hard to become a logo of that movement suddenly. And whenever you want to make fashion political, because when I went into fashion back in the days, it was some kind of fantasy. I didn't know too much about it. It's something that we dream about. And in one way, when I work and style and make pictures and images and have conversations with the collaborators I have, it's still a way of fantasize about life. And it can be morally wrong, or it can be morally right, or ethical. Very, it's a ground that is not, like, it's not solid. You don't step on a solid ground, because the business side of it is never solid in that term. So I think it's a very important distinct what is political fashion. This is something that came up in the end of the 60s, but mostly I think in the 90s. And it might change a perspective of fashion, but I don't know if fashion can ever take that responsibility. I'm not sure it's the core of fashion to take not to take political action, I believe in, but to take political responsibility is something else, because you have to be very true to that. You can have ethic values, but you need to know how to handle them in real life. So it's for me, fashion still is a fantasy about life. And then when I work in the commercial field, which I do mostly, in so many ways, there are so many things obstacles that we have to look through and to compromise with in different terms, as you do in your everyday life. Having a child, it's a compromise. It's like the reality of your life is a compromise. It depends on how you can act on it. And I think that's a very severe fashion problem.
Politics and fashion, as Naomi says, it's a difficult and very complex subject. We, with Lazo Schmiedel, we say we do non-political fashion. Our focus is to create our story, our vision, and be creators. And if the public wants to interpret in political way, they're more than welcome to interpret that way. We offer something different. We offer something that no one else in Sweden at the moment is offering, and we allow people to be open and open mind, and that's about it. I don't personally want to go into more politics from my point of view when it comes to fashion. And as Naomi says, the starting point as a stylist or a designer is it's a dream, and I think in any creative workspace you have a dream that you wanna pursue and you wanna make a reality. So for me, like, doing Lazo Schmiedel is a dream coming true. And last season when we had our first show, was a really emotional moment. So I think it's more about creating dreams. for me personally.
Yeah, I think maybe for Frida and me it's a little bit different because we think a lot about what's happening right now in the world, and I think actually as a having a company, we have to have a lot of lust when we work, but also we have to feel that we do something that can change the things that we see in the world around us. And for me, it's really important to go to work and have that feeling. And if you call that politic, I don't know. It's taking a stand and have great and good values in the company. So if that's the same, then let's go political. But I think that for us, this has the way of taking a stand has given us a great of creativity, and has also, of course, had an impact of our collection and the way that we present our collections. Today we are having a fashion show tonight, but first actually we are going out on the streets with not models, some models, but also common people, the people that we see in the street. So we think that we have to be like closer both to the customer and the things that happens today for all people in Sweden and in the world, not just a few. So maybe that's political, I don't know.
So this taking a stand, as you say, or like in that way also challenging norms, there are also hierarchies within what norms we challenge. Like heteronormativity is so crucial for our society and also so crucial in fashion, like the gender part as we talked about. But is there norms that we don't challenge that we should challenge? Or that you think is coming up in the future, like the norms we forgot about? Or like, have you any thoughts on that?
I guess we don't know about them because they're norms for us. So if you start like skrapar, if you start scratching on this subject, you will find new things all the time. And I think that is one of the things that makes me go to work and work really hard.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Well, for example, everyone is here because they're interested in this topic right now, and within gender or racism or any type of what we know today, and it's quite trendy at the moment to be either an activist. Everyone kind of wants to be involved in something, but also people don't really want to do their homework. It's just like pressing likes and stuff like that. So challenging the norm and like things that are missing out is also about, for example, handicap. When you go to a club, if you organize a club, yes, you want to have great diversity. You want to have bouncers that are not sexist, but does the club have access for wheelchairs? Does the club help people that have hearing difficulties enjoy the music as well? As in museums, you have this little thing that helps you listen to different kind of stuff. So I know in Borås there was this student,
Louise Linderoth.
Yeah, she did a collection about being in a wheelchair, for example. So this is one of the things that I know is not spoken so much of, because it's not trending. But also one of the issues with trending activism is about, it's so good. It's great that they want to have more POCs on the covers. It's great that people are very aware of gender at the moment. But when this blows over, it's not like a fashion trend where polka dots are in the season and out next season. It affects people. So in a couple of years when it moved to something else, there would still be people who are affected by racism, sexism, and stuff like that. So that's the real issue with these things, where it's activism is a trendy thing rather than you're actually there. Instead of being like an ally, be an accomplice. Like, be there and, you know, do stuff with the people who are suffocating because of this. And the wheelchair and the handicaps is just one of the things that I can think of that are not really being talked about. And I guess there gotta be hundreds other ones, but because we live in such a sweet society and we just worried about, you know, how much we're gonna sell or what shows is we're gonna make for dinner and stuff like that, we just forget about all these other things. So there's always something.
There's been also this critique to norm criticality, that norm criticality is the new norm. Then also seeing, I guess, norms as something fixed, or discrimination as something fixed. Or what's your thought on that critique, that norm criticality or challenging norms is the new norm? So it's, yeah.
I think if you stop because you maybe will get critics of what you do, I think that's bad. Of course, we won't do everything right from the start, and of course, we could do more. Of course, we could do it faster, but I think it's just really important that we start. I mean, we get critique on the things that we do, and sometimes it's really good for us to get that critique so we can do better next time. But I think you can't just, if you stop and think, okay, maybe I will do something wrong, then nothing will happen. So let's just start.
So I think the common ground here is that we all know that there's only one thing to do, generally I think in life, but that's my conception of it, but is that taking risks. So norms, whatever that means again, is taking a risk. So we all have different backgrounds, and we use that in our work in different ways. As a creative working person, you use that a lot because you have to. There's no other way than project whatever you've been experience or know into your work in some level. It's a definition of your work in a way. So there's always been a challenging, in every time in society there's been a challenge around political views or oppression or whatever you work in, wherever you grew up in, and you get affected by it. So I don't think there's no start for norms and there's no end to it. There's not a counterproductive way of looking at norms. It's just a very complex termination of things. It's hard to know how to not work with it. It's more that. But in a business mind, you have to take risks. Otherwise, you can't provide anything. You can't come up with anything, and you can't make a result. Whatever result that might be on your agenda, you have to take risks. It's all about that, I would say.
My last question before I will also let the audience come with questions if you have, but in the future, what position do you think that the norm creative or the norm challenging work will have? It can be in the future.
Difficult question. I mean, say the question again.
In the future, what position or how do you think people will look at the norm challenging work or norm creativity? What position will the work have?
I wish and hope that it's a bright position, and that more people with a voice gets the chance to speak. And I think, I mean, it's we can only do our best to make that happen, I think. And it's hard to answer because if we knew, then we wouldn't be sitting here, I think.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I believe it just kind of go on, and always depending on trend, there's gonna be new things happening, and but as well, if fashion is always like cycles, so it will come and go, and there will always be something new, and but people always question things, and I hope for future generations to continue question things. And what we could do is to open up doors for these young kids that maybe don't have the privilege to study at fancy schools or such, so that they can go on with the right tools and continue question these things. That maybe in one day, if you step into an office, there's going to be enough people who do challenge the boss who says sexist comments or such, so it's about what everyone does, not just someone in a power position, but it's about what you do on the street. Do you tell someone off? So if this becomes the norm, hallelujah. But it's something that everyone gotta do together. It's not up to any of us to be saying that, yes, we're gonna take it on us to make sure we conserve the norm or criticism, and it's for all of you in the audience to challenge these things. It doesn't just happen because of one person. It's pretty much everyone.
I would say in the best of worlds, this is a non-question in the future, but maybe that the norm is that you can be yourself and respected of everyone for that, whatever that is.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think we have to end there. Yeah.